Okay, this video is about how to change your theme to get the perfect look you want for your site and or your front page of your site. I will say a lot of sites, you change the theme or the front page, it actually has very little effect on some of the following pages, depending on the theme. But if you go into themes, especially if you have a new site, sometimes you have an existing site, it usually comes with a couple standard, 2019, 2012, there was a couple standards that, and these are just standard WordPress sites, whereas there's a lot of them that you can build a very semi-custom site with a little bit of work to it. But I will say, I'll warn you right now, there is literally thousands of options to choose from. So be careful, don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. So I'll give you some quick tips to be able to save yourself a lot of time. So of all the thousands of features that are out there, they're usually listed by featured. So obviously this is kind of a standard template that's on almost every site as it goes up. So this is one of the most popular. You can sort by the most popular, which usually are sometimes the older ones. It's not necessarily the ones people choose or pick. It's the ones that come standard. So these are some of the ones that are used a lot with websites, which doesn't mean they're bad. Obviously, this is a pretty standard template for a shopping site. So if you have an e-commerce site, this is a really good template to use. If you have a consulting business or something that has a better for front header, that may be good where you're not actually having purchases. There's a lot of them in here. If you have a magazine or a very visual, this may be a better thing. This is another thing you can get caught up in. If you have a blog or an a photography site is something that it's a completely different look of a site that you're going for if you have a lot of imagery to show. So it'll give you ones in those categories. I will say some of those categories aren't as good as some of the other lookup options. Again, if you have more magazine or blog based, something that where you can get a lot of information right on the front is sometimes better, again, with a lot of the things that are there. So I actually don't like to use the filters, but this helps you if you have something very specific or something that's really important to you, like if you want a 1-column, 2-column, or whatever, that sometimes can help. I kind of like, if you have a more business theme site, I like using the search bar more than the others. So these will give you previews, and one of the wonderful things of how I pick a theme or a site when we're looking for a free theme, I will say there is some great paid for themes that are fairly low cost that are pretty amazing too. But this is just keeping it free. Again, when you're starting your business, I don't really advocate spending a ton of money to get the basic template of a site down. The difficult and hard thing about this is if you have different things you're looking up here, it may not really relate to some of the themes. Some of them are really good at relating. Some of them give big general categories and or it can't find a whole lot in that category, but sometimes this will get you a good start. One of the nice things is some of these are very different and you can get very different looks, and don't worry as much about the color scheme because most of them you can change the colors, some of them you can't. More look at it for the features. Do you like the menu on top? Do you like a top menu and then a bottom menu? Do you like the social icons up here and then these different features? So think of those type of features, whether you like them or not, don't like them, to help pick those themes. Whether you like it having a full screen image and or maybe a half screen image, or if you want those purchase buttons on the bottom. Those are important things. Again, the wonderful thing is you can preview this, you can see the details, but I wanted to show you a little bit about how I choose. So something like this, when you want to preview it or look at the details, a couple criteria that I usually use. When it shows up like this, it means you have to configure all of these settings. Some of them have a demo site and some of them don't. And if they have a demo content, it will actually create this site for you, which is a huge advantage when you're starting out. But again, you got to be careful with the demo sites. If you already have a site, it can actually replace some of your current content. So if you use a demo content, it's really good for new sites, not necessarily changing existing sites. But again, here they have full demo sites and typically demo content. So that's the wonderful thing about something here. You can see if they have full demos where you can see it on another page. So this is a really good concept. So you can kind of look, see, touch, feel the site and see if that's something you want to use for yours. Again, usually a lot of the demo content is in a pro theme. And some of these are good, some of these are bad. I do typically like to email the customer support line just to see how good their response is, so that if I have any trouble, I know I have help in there if I do purchase it. But sticking with the free themes, one of the things that I try to avoid is when there hasn't been any ratings. It doesn't give me a lot of confidence that this has been out for a while. I don't know how many revisions have been done, and I don't know if anybody's really even used that. So I typically don't pick ones that don't have any reviews unless I really, really like it. So again, you can kind of see how this did an overlay on my site without any changes. So it's going to actually do some adjustment before you make any changes. So that's a wonderful thing about being able to preview it. You can kind of see what it's doing. You can see whether it's got ratings. You can typically see if there's any demo content, whether it's designed for a commerce site where you can sell, or if it's not. So again, on here, it's got a couple reviews. It's got some good ratings. This would be good for a business store where if you have something, it looks very professional and it's got a different thing. It also has some more information, and you can see more about the theme. You can see the demo, and it is a WordPress.org store, not a theme store, if that makes sense. So I always trust WordPress.org over a lot of the themes because they usually have a little more filters, and you can see what's going on. You can see how many active installs, besides just the 2 reviews, you know how many people have installed. You just get a little more information about the site sometimes from these when it was originally put out. So this hasn't been put out that long, which that means other people don't have a site that looks just like it, and that's one thing people go for when they're doing sites. I will say configuring this without demo content may be more difficult than you think. It always is a little more tricky in some areas. But you can download it directly from here if you like that. Trying to think of something that's just a little less complicated, because if you see all these components, sometimes that can actually create more complexity than you're ready for depending on your level of programming. Something like this probably doesn't have a whole lot of complexity to it as far as the different components. Even something like this might not. Trying to think of one that... So this is one that I know I've used before. This is something when you install it, again, it can give you a little different look, a little different feel, but there's a lot of them out there. If you like the buttons on the front or you like the slides, you can do that. So once you activate it, it actually takes over the front layer of your site. So I wanted to show you real quick how it looks on your site once you've done that. So if you go to your site and visit your site, you probably won't see a whole lot of changes right away, other than it changes some of the color schemes sometimes to the different patterns. So what you have to do to make it look like that is do this customize. And I personally suggest if you're going to customize it, you create a new home page that's blank, that you can actually apply the theme options to. So if you go under theme options, it gives you an option for footer. So you can say all rights reserved, you can put yours. A lot of themes do this footer, and there's some tips and tricks to be able to take away the standard footer. The general settings, as far as layout, you can do the right side, you can do the left side, you can do full width. You can say how long you want your excerpts, and the images for the front page, you can kind of decide on that. So this is what I mean by it can be fairly complicated to duplicate it if you're new or you don't have a lot of knowledge in how to build a website from those templates. But the feature slider section, almost all these sections you can enable or disable. So they're disabled on this page because that's kind of by default. So once you enable it, it actually is going to put that slider in there that was on the template. And you can decide what page you want for a template, and it's going to use the feature image from that page. So if you don't have feature images, it can't put a feature image on that page. Let's see. So in the service section, again, a lot of times you enable it. Those, what we showed, it had those 3 different dots on it. The good thing is you can just pick the page. You can pick, workshops and classes and shop. In the about section, so you can select the image, you can select the different things. This is really good to personalize it to make it look like yours as much as possible. Okay, so each one of those sections you can add a call to action, different things like that. And it's a wonderful way to put things on there that again, making it look more and more like the original. So it's good to kind of go back and forth. So once you've done that, you want to click publish. You can change the site identity, the colors, the icon. What I like to do if I'm going to be doing this, again, this is set up for a shopping site, this original tutorial. What I like to do anytime I do create a new home page or I'm testing out a new theme is actually don't do it from an original page. So sometimes I'll put together a new home page, publish it so that it's available, and then go back to appearance and customize. And once you go into the customize section, one of the top ones will be homepage settings. Right here, sometimes it's at the top, sometimes it's at the bottom, but usually it's one of these listed. But if you go into homepage settings, it'll ask you what page you want for your homepage. And again, I like to set up a new one just so that I don't lose anything on the other one and there's no content to type over or different things. And as you can see, if the screen's black, that means I didn't have a featured image for these pages. So you can see what pages I had a feature image on, what pages I didn't, but it gives you a little snippet of what's on that page. If you click here, it goes straight to that page for read more. And again, this creates your header. So if you have a feature image for these pages, it will come up that way. So on the services, anything you have written in the text will come up here. So if you don't have anything written in the text, it'll have this, which you can click straight to it, but it won't have any of this text. So if you put text in it, it'll show it up on that. Again, on the about, I just put test content. It'll show up like this. You can change it just a little bit. So be aware if you have a horizontal image that it's going to chop it to this for this section. And again, you can add many, many more sections, but it's a great way to keep your same style at the top, but be able to put a whole new look to some of your features on it. Just another alternative versus using a page builder. You can use a standard templated front page of a new theme. So I really like doing these kind of things to get started, to get a really fresh look. It's a great way to refresh an old website, is just pick a new theme, do a new homepage, and you really don't have to change a whole lot of anything else, because if you change the homepage on your site, everything looks fresh and different. I did want to show you real quick to make sure on those pages that it comes out better in the sliders. So to make sure we have a feature image for the slider, especially in this one, we did it with a page builder. So we don't want to edit with Elementor. We actually want to edit the page so that we can add in a featured image so that it'll show up on that slider on the front page. So how you do that is just go right in here to the featured image for that particular page. Find an image that relates really well to that page or that you really like. I'm gonna pick, and then update and see the page again. It should automatically come up on the slider correctly. So again, now your homepage looks completely different, looks completely updated. And as you scroll through, it's got nice, good images that relate to the content. So if you go straight to that page, it makes total sense and it's concurrent with what's going on. Thanks.